Welcome everybody to this evening's Be Ready to Play webinar. We hope you're looking forward to this evening. It's what a beautiful evening it is out. So we're hoping that everybody's looking forward to our next installment of the Be Ready to Play webinars. My name is William Harmon and I'm going to be your host for this evening. But as I say, guys, we hope you're enjoying the Be Ready to Play program. We kicked off 2 weeks ago with Helen McElroy with an absolutely fantastic webinar focusing on preparing to train and play, how to decrease your injury risk. So I would advocate, guys, if you haven't seen Helen's webinar, I would definitely urge everyone to get onto the website to give a look at your own time. Some great stuff going on there from Helen. And also, just to let you know, Anna McCarry and also our colleague Shane Murphy has some great stuff in terms of the athletic development, in terms of videos and guidance around cardio and how to improve your general fitness. So guys, as I said, if you've not seen those over the coming weeks, please get onto them and please view them. There's some great resources there to help you with your planning and over the coming weeks. And we'll also be joined later on by our leader in terms of Des Ryan. Des will be outlining what is coming up over the coming weeks. So there's some really exciting stuff coming up that we're all delighted to see. So Des will give us an outline at the end of the webinar on what is coming up. So without further ado, we'll move on to tonight's topic, which is focusing on technical coaching for hurling, camogie and football. So that's our topic for tonight. And we're joined by four fantastic guests. We have Fiona McHale. Fiona is a current Mayo senior footballer. She's a PhD candidate, and she's also one of the Ladies Gaelic Football Gaelic for Teens ambassadors. So delighted to have Fiona with us tonight. We're also joined by the former Kildare All-Star legend, that is Johnny Doyle. He's also the Leinster GDA, and Johnny's going to be joining us tonight. So we're really looking forward to talking to Johnny and getting his thoughts and feedback in relation to the technical aspects of the game. In addition, we've Niall Corcoran. Niall, who is the current Wexford senior hurling coach and also is a GPO with his club in Kilmacud Crokes, and is also a former Dublin hurler, and tells me he's very confident of both sides of the body. So really looking forward to hearing how Niall Corcoran achieves that. So Niall, we're looking forward to hearing that. And we're joined also by Eileen Gleason. Eileen is with the Camogie Association, coach developer for the Camogie Association, but also is a coach for the Clare Ladies minor camogie team. So really looking forward to tonight. Hope you are. I am. And I'm going to be your host, so we'll be posing loads of questions to the lads as we go along. But without further ado, I think we'll kick off the webinar by linking it. Hello, Fiona. How are you? So we have Fiona involved. How are you, Fiona?
Hi, Will. How are you? Good.
Great to have you this evening. So I'm just going to probably start off. Everybody's here tonight and they're looking at the heading of technical coaching in football, hurling, and camogie. Can you tell me, what do we mean by the term technical coaching? What do we mean by it, Fiona?
Yeah, so it's coaching the skills of the game. So, for example, in Gaelic football, it would be coaching around kicking, around catching, carrying the ball, soloing, hand passing, and then in terms of hurling, it could be the likes of the jab lift, the roll lift, striking, hand passing, soloing. But there are many, many more skills than that. For example, in Gaelic football, in terms of catching, you'd have 4 different types of catch. So you could have the low catch, the high catch, the reach catch, or the body catch. So all of these different types of catches or skills will be used depending on circumstances that arise within a game.
I think, Fiona, you hit a very good point, and I was looking through the GAALearning website, and great resource there, and a lot of drills and activities. But am I right in saying, Fiona, there's 25 football skills and 28 hurling skills? Like, I know of football in terms of high catch, body catch, pick up, solo, hurling. I'm aware of the jab lift and the striking off the ground. Did I pick up that wrong? Is there 28 hurling skills and 25 football skills? And do we practice them all, I wonder?
Yeah, apparently. So I think the hurling people might say there's more skills than 28 as well. They might argue that one. But yeah, it is amazing the amount of skills that there is. And I suppose if you asked everyone on this call tonight and even ourselves here to write down every single one of those skills for each of the codes, we'd probably find it difficult to do. But you're right, there is, I think it's 24 in football and 28 and technically 24 in football and 28 in hurling. Just even an example in football would be the sidestep, or the feint would be a skill, but also the dummy would also be considered a different skill. So there's many skills that maybe a lot of people aren't even aware of, and we probably have to consider that when we are coaching. Are we coaching all the skills, or are we just focused on the general ones?
I think that, and you know what, maybe the question we need to ask ourselves, I put out to everybody tonight, just think about that. Of all those skills, A, can you name them all? And B, do you develop them all? And I just think it's very interesting. Sometimes we take some skills for I suppose we assume that some skills are taken for that they know how to do the skills, some of the players. So it's very important as players as well. Do you know what all the skills are? So thank you, Fiona, for that. Now I might move on to you and pose the question in relation to why is it important for players and coaches to continue to develop the skills? And I suppose I'll also add on a bit of another question to that in terms of, does it just apply to the youth? Should it apply to the adult and the advanced adult? Should we be practicing our skills at all levels, Niall?
Great question. Well, before we answer that one, I think there are 125 hurling and camogie skills in the game. I heard Paddy Butler say one time at a coaching course, so lots to learn. But going back to your question, look, basic answer is if we don't have those skills, it's very hard for us to play the game. And really, as coaches, our aim should be to develop these skills and develop bilateral players. So what we mean by that, we're develop players who can kick off both feet, strike off both sides. Because what that allows us to do is it allows us several options when we're playing the game, as opposed to a player who is maybe one-sided. It cuts down many of these options in the game. But I think most importantly, what it does, if we can develop these skills and these competencies in our players, we're also going to increase the enjoyment and confidence on our players. And I think that's really important to note. If players have these skills, they're going to play and participate longer in our games. And we know a lot of research out there in relation to dropout and lack of fun and maybe lack of perceived competence. So I think they're some of the reasons why developing these skills is really important, and they're important for all levels. Whether you're an adult or maybe a novice player starting the game at 5 years of age, you always have to have an opportunity to develop your skills to participate and indeed compete.
That's an excellent point, Dan. I suppose we should never take them for granted. If there's players here tonight, the importance of, and coaches working off both sides, and that means turning off both sides. That means being able to play off both sides. So Niall, excellent points there. And I suppose if you feel confident in the skills, you'll enjoy the game more because you'll be able to express yourself more and be more creative as a player, and also as a coach, you're creating more creative players because you're giving them more options. If we're developing all those skills, I didn't realize there's over 100 skills in hurling camogie. Geez, that's something new for me. So wow, unbelievable! And thank you, Niall. Johnny Doyle, I'm going to bring you in here. And in terms of coaches and players, well, how do we develop all the skills? And I suppose even as the individual, as a player, even as coaches, how do we develop the skills of the game, Johnny? And I suppose when I first started coaching, Johnny, I think I actually confused myself at times. I felt, the more cones I had, the more complex the activity, the better. And I actually felt I think I was actually confusing the players. And then I started confusing myself. And I'm gone back to be more simple in what I'm doing. What's your thoughts on how to develop the skills, Johnny? Is it all about being complex or keeping it simple? What's your thoughts on that? I think you're on mute there, Johnny, as far as I know. Yeah, just in case.
Apologies. Yeah, sorry, Will. Yeah, I suppose it's a great question, and when we talk about coaching is complex. It's very complex because what we think works today doesn't work tomorrow for some strange reason, and that's the challenge for us all. And it's we talk about the skills of the game, and the real challenge is how do we do that, and to challenge that further, how do we get our players to go and do it? Because at the end of the day, they're the people that have to go and practice the skills and practice them at a high level and introduce pace so they can perform them proficiently in a game situation. And that's what we're going to talk about a lot here tonight is giving them opportunities. Can we watch them? Can we see them online? doing the skills of the game, maybe sending back little video clips and things like that. But the big thing for me, like Niall said, is being able to use both sides of the body. It's being that creative and getting comfortable where you're performing the skill without even thinking of it. It becomes second nature. You know, when we throw a ball at somebody, they automatically catch it. I want players to be able to automatically, if they're blocked down on their right foot, they automatically can turn to their left foot. It doesn't matter. You know, we talk about maybe this is a natural thing. We often hear the commentators on the Sunday game saying, oh, they're natural footballers. But the chances are they've just practiced the skill so easily that it becomes second nature, and it makes them it makes them feel that, you know what, these can do this without thinking. And that's our challenge as coaches, to do that. And we're going to look at that in good detail throughout this evening. So that's for me is the big thing about it, is, you know, making sure that we are proficient both sides of the body, and how can we do that where maybe our players are even unaware that they're practicing, and we're maybe challenging them along the way.
And I think, Johnny, and we're going to move on now to the clips and show people clips. But you'll see a lot of these clips are very simplistic in nature. But we're actually going to also kind of discuss how we can make them harder, can make them easier. Even if there's players here tonight observing what's going on, that you can do it in your back garden or a bit of a green space. But I always feel you can always make things, you know, you can always challenge yourself about being creative as a coach and as a player. Well, how can I make this harder? How can I make this easier? Why don't you actually just, you know, think about it yourself, and you can be very creative. So we're going to move on, and Johnny, I'm going to keep you on the screen if that's okay, because we're going to move on to our first activity tonight. So we're going to go through 8 clips, everybody, and what we're going to do is we'll show you the clips, and we'll just have a discussion on the clips as well as we go along. So the first clip is going to be a hop and solo, perfecting the basic skills. So Johnny, James, my colleagues in the background, say hello to James as well. James doing an awful good work in the background for us. James Heffernan from the CAMOGIE Association. So thanks, James. James in the background doing all the producing for us. So we're going to play the clip, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, so I suppose, look, you talked about, Will, about the simplicity of the game, and sometimes we feel we have to maybe entertain the players as well as, but you know, all the top players perform the skills, the basic skills very well. And we're going to start with this one, you know, using 2 footballs, very simple, getting to use both sides of the body, being, I suppose, using the left side where, you know, you're forced to drop the ball from your left hand onto your left foot. You're not crossing the body. Things like that we're looking for. So, you know, rather than carrying the ball in my right hand and trying to solo with my left foot, I'm getting caught off balance. So a very simple basic drill. You're taking a solo around the cone, taking a hop, left foot, left hand, right hand, and giving it to your partner, and they go again. Now, we can progress that on. It's maybe just a warm-up skill. We can progress that on is how quick you can get out and back, how quick can you do too, when we put a bit of competition in it, you know, maybe among the 2 players. So that's sort of what we're looking for. It's just getting us into maybe our early in our skill session, and we're looking to progress that as we go on. But I think that the big thing is, when we're using both sides of the body, is that, you know, we're slowly getting into, but we're forcing the players to use both hands as both sides of the body by carrying a second ball. I think that's the real, and we're probably using both sides of our brain as well.
Exactly, and I think that's the complex skill. So yeah, you know, that the 2 footballs, Johnny. So you're just about going to, why is it important to you to get players to use 2 footballs? And I also like this is, you know, I suppose we're just coming back to return to play, and I'm listening to Shane Murphy and Annie McHale an awful lot in terms of, like, there's no point going crazy in terms of going at 100 miles an hour. You could be doing this at 60, 70, 80%. And why is 2 footballs, Johnny? Can you explain? You're just about that complex skills, and what is it also developing?
Yeah, well, that's, you know, as I say, we are developing that. We're playing both sides of the body. You know, the ball is not crossing the body, and we're off balance. And maybe the more scientific people would talk about using the left side and the right side of the brain, and all back to muscle memory and all those technical or maybe scientific things we talk about. So certainly I think there is a benefit. It's getting comfortable on the ball, being, you know, making sure that eventually that you don't care whether you have to solo off with your left foot or your right foot. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you have to pass with your left hand or your right hand. And the simple thing, being able to turn without thinking and maybe pick out an opponent with your left-handed pass, could be the difference in winning and losing a game. You know, we've seen so often, you know, particularly in the pandemic, we've seen it so often where there's, you know, a player kicking the ball off the wall. Now we're introducing a bit of movement. okay, in this clip, and we'll see a little bit more as we go on, there's not too much decision making. It's focusing in on the technical side of the skill. We look maybe more at the decision making and increasing the running aspect of it as well. But it's a good drill maybe to just get us up, get us running, and as we start our session.
And you can work a bit on high speed running. If you don't have a partner, you can use a wall, hop the ball off the wall with the left and right and go again. Fiona, I might bring you in here. Is there anything you'd like to add to that clip in terms of what Johnny's just presented there with the 2 balls on soling off the left and right in a straight line coming back, and I suppose the importance of turning off the left and right when you get to the cone as well? Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Fiona?
Yeah, if you wanted, you could just increase the distance of the cone out so that you're getting a good run at it and getting good pacing. So you'd be soloing with both feet and hopping with both hands all on the way out. And then when you turn the cone, you could decide to turn on your left or turn on the right. Your partner could call that. But then when you turn the cone, you could kick pass back to your partner. So give a long kick pass with the left first, and then give a long kick pass with the right if you want to progress it on and add in that skill as well.
And if you're with a partner, then your partner could work on the high catch, or could work on the catching, or your partner could be moving off the cone left and right. So there's so many ways you can develop these things, guys. It's great to see. So Johnny and Fiona, thank you very much for that. We're just going to progress on to the next one. The next one is number 2, one touch and strike. I don't know, Eileen, are you with us there on that in terms of the next clip? And we have Niall as well. So Eileen, if you can hear me. I'm just conscious there, so we'll put Niall. I'm going to get Niall to come in there. So Niall, we're going to look at this one. So there's one touch and strike, Niall. We're just going to look at the clip and we'll see where it comes. So Niall Corcoran, I'll get you to probably to explain this one when it comes up on the screen.
Thanks,
Eileen, no bother at all. So we'll just wait for the clip to come up, guys. And this is hurling, one touch and strike. So it's just coming there. Just bear with us with it. And this is putting a condition on it to increase the difficulty.
Your target is 60 seconds and you are allowed a maximum of 2 drops only.
So this all becomes clear once you see the clip.
Make sure you have soft hands to kill the ball when it comes back at you, and you're only allowed to take 1 touch only before striking the ball back.
So I guess the hurling wall is a very popular way for hurlers and camogie players to develop their skills and work on their striking and work on their touch. So this is a simple exercise that we can do at the gable end of the house as we're all in lockdown and we're all looking to keep sharp. And I suppose the focus of this is to use the wall to improve our technical proficiency around touch and striking. And what I love to do is I love to add time and targets to activities like this, because it gives a focus to the players. And in this instance, there was one touch on the hurley, strike off left and both right and left sides. And as you can see, Will, I'm developing both sides of my body there. So that's proof there for you. I think the key here is the key with this one is that you have to set the challenge appropriate to the needs of the player. So where is the player at in terms of their development? What can and can't they do? And then look at adopting that skill or that activity so they can become competent at it. Some things we might think about in terms of making it easier for younger players. You can add in more touches. So they can take 2 or 3 touches to control the ball, and for older players then you can reduce it to 1 touch. You can see from the clip that really you're reacting to how the ball comes off the wall, so you might have to use your feet to step in to control the ball, you might have to use your feet to step back. I think that's really that your feet are a big part of developing those skills. For the advanced players, using some handballs, for example, or reaction balls, because you're really then having to respond to how the ball comes off the wall, how fast it comes back, how it can control the ball. And I think they're all things that you can bring into that type of activity. Adding in a second player, for example, So you're working in pairs against the gable end to really kind of increase the competition. And really what we're trying to do when we talk to all these clips, we're looking to how can we bring this back to kind of a condition where it replicates some of the demands of the game, and how can we test those skills within those demands.
And Joe, Niall, I like that one because, you know, I was looking there, and one of the key skills of hurling is controlling a moving ball. And I think that's a really good one off the wall, whereby you're not using your hand, you're using the hurl to control the ball. You're striking the ball back, you're reacting with your feet, you're working off both sides, which I really like that. So one of the key skills, guys, in hurling is controlling a moving ball. And I think this is very apt to that skill, Niall. And if you think about even football, Joe, we have this freestyle soccer, Joe, keep yuppies. Same idea of understanding how to control the ball. I think, Niall, that's a real good one to work on, that controlling a moving ball, and get used to that off both sides without using your hand to touch, I suppose, catch the ball. I think that's a nice one with that, you know.
Absolutely, it's great for developing your wrists also, and developing that nice, as we call it, wristy strike. But really, it allows you to what it forces you to do. It kind of read the ball, how it comes off, and really, I think the greatest advantage of using a hurling wall is really about, again, go back to this word confidence, because a player can go to the wall, work on a touch and work on a strike, and I think if they can become confident at that, well, look, they're going back to the pitch full of confidence, having worked in that skill, and I think that's something that it adds value to also.
Excellent. And Niall, in fairness, you're not too bad, not a bad dab-handed there, hurling there on the clip. So well done, fair play to you. Eileen, is there anything you'd like to add, and you know, into that clip in terms of, you know, your observations or something you liked about it, or what are your thoughts on that clip, Eileen?
I hope I can be heard now.
You can, yeah, I can hear you. You're all good. You're all
Sorry,
good.
yeah.
You're all good.
No, we had a lot of discussion when we're picking clips like that about the overuse of the wall, but you get a lot of feeling, the feedback you get. You know if the ball is dropping short, whether you're not striking through the ball. You know, if you have even a rough surface wall, your footwork has to improve, and there's always something you can do and change at the wall. Like, a lot of people are limited, that they haven't the space at the moment. That might be all they have. So a straightforward wall, take out something like catching. Initially you're thinking, okay, we want people to catch the ball, but you actually have to use your feet a lot more in this particular drill than you would do if you're just standing there catching it, facing the wall. Hips are all wrong, shoulders are all wrong. Whereas here you have to move your feet, or Niall would make a show of himself there if he wasn't moving his feet.
Yeah, and I think you made a very good point, Eileen, in terms of, you know, we always say practice the skills while moving. And sometimes I go back to the point that I had with Johnny there earlier, where I asked, should it be complex or should it be simple? You know, you could make simplistic complex if you want. You can challenge yourself by doing it on time, you know, and using different surfaces of wall. So there's loads of different ways we can do it. So thanks, Niall and Eileen, on that. I'm going to bring back Fiona, and Fiona, we're going to look at the next one here, and that is the football. So we're going to go back to a football clip. So Fiona, we're going to, James will put it up in a second. So Fiona's going to look at kind of a zigzag football clip. Again, complex skills using two footballs with a bounce and a solo and a change of direction. And it's vitally important, I suppose, when we're going returning to play. Let's go back to Shane and Annie's advice and Helen McElroy's advice. It's very important that we introduce these in a systematic format and not going. So Fiona, over to you. Tell me what we see. Tell me what we're looking at.
So this is very much progressing on from the drill we just showed with Johnny there, where it started off that it was very much straight line, whereas this is bringing in a bit of complexity where you're focused on changing direction, but also ensuring that the player is working off both feet, which is really, really important. And the fact that they have both balls in their hands means that they don't have a choice. You have to, when you are soloing off your left, you have to work off the left hand, and then vice versa with the right. And it nearly makes it a little bit easier just in terms of the way the brain works. So if you wanted to make this a little bit harder, and if you obviously were, this goes without saying, allowed to have physical contact, you could just remove the predictability of those cones that are there, because they're obviously working there in a figure of 8. So it is working very much, as you said, kind of on the athletic development of, you know, focused on changing direction to help you with that return to play and not get injured. But if you wanted to reduce that kind of predictability, first of all, your partner could actually just shadow you around the figure of 8, just putting a little bit of pressure as you're taking your solo, and just putting maybe a small hand on the back just to put that pressure on. But then to remove more predictability, you could just remove the cones altogether. Just put the 2 people into a square and have your partner just shadow you around that square where you are working still off both hands, both feet. But because your partner is shadowing you, you have to obviously change direction unpredictably. So, and that would be a nice way to progress that one.
And this could be done on your own. It could be done with a partner or one of your, your brother, your sister, your parent, your guardian. But also, guys, think about this one. You could do without the footballs and just mimic those actions and get used to those actions, and then bring in the ball. Even with those youth players, sometimes we feel we have to have the ball in hand. But Fiona, I suppose you could do without the ball in terms of mimic the actions first, turning left and right, and then bring in the ball and just, because sometimes I think Lee Morgan was saying in terms of like, we'll never make a mistake when we don't have the ball. So why don't we just, think like that, just try something different. And that's good points. Johnny, I might bring you in here on that one. Have you anything to add to what Fiona was saying in relation to this drill here?
No, I think in fairness to Fiona's covered a lot in it. The only thing, I suppose, from a coaching point of view is what we're making, again, players, we're turning on both sides. And I think that's a really important thing, because if I'm playing as a forward or I'm receiving a ball, ball bounce in front of me and I turn, automatically I'm going to turn to my left side, so I'll be getting on my strong right foot. I don't think about it, I'm going to turn. So that makes me a little bit predictable from a point of view of the mark. And if you're as a defender marking a forward, he's going to turn onto his turn left to go onto his strong foot. All of a sudden, then they make it that bit easier to mark. So things like that. But in this way, we're forcing players to turn left, turn right. You make a good point. Can we do that with just one ball? Can we do it without a ball? Can we introduce the second ball? There's no right and wrong in this for me. It's about knowing your players, knowing where they're at, and maybe forcing them to challenge them that little bit. And that's where the real learning for me comes. And
I think, you had very good points that Fiona's in there. Guys, think about this, players and coaches. If you ask the player to run to a corner and turn and come back again, I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they'll turn off the same side. So think about that unpredictability. Let's bring that unpredictability, that creativity into our game. So thanks, Fiona, and thanks, Johnny, for that. We're going to move it on swiftly to the next one in terms of beat the call. And Eileen, I'm going to have you probably just look at this one for us. And this is looking at kind of, I suppose, partner reaction, reacting to calls. So Eileen, we're going to ask you for your thoughts. And while James is putting up, if you can start commenting on it whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so we started to try and look at how you bring in someone at home. So some of us are in a house with somebody who mightn't be a player. So how are we going to get them involved?
So just going to come up there
the way back in. 3, 2, 4. Nice and fast, 4. Don't step into cones, nice and fast, get it on the hurl the way back in. 2.
I like that, Eileen. I like that drill because, it's reactions, it's movement, it's on your feet. Yeah, anything else, Eileen, you want to say on that clip?
Yeah, so as I said, kind of it's a way of getting external cues. So a lot of our matches, and we have to try and bring as much as we can back to how does this relate to the game. So we're bringing it on from your static exercises where the wall isn't shouting at you. So you have mom or dad or a sibling or anyone, the next door neighbour, calling a number, any make of cues, and we'll go through another clip later on where we look if you're on your own how you would use cues. And you can build on that then. So you could make it easy by taking out the balls. You could see at the start even of that clip, the player doesn't use the ball because they're so focused on reacting to the number, and the coach prompts them, solo on the way back in. You could have it as simple as just go to the cone, the number of the cone, the colour of the cone, whichever. Add in a skill then along the way, jab lift on the way out, solo on the way back, or add in another cue, so one, and then they have to react, throw the ball at them. So surely you'll find somebody who could pass you a ball They don't have to be able to play the game as such. But again, it is a technical skill, so you want to say, okay, what am I actually looking for as a player or as as the observer? If it's somebody who isn't your coach is observing, they could record it for you, and you could watch back then, what did I do right, what did I do wrong?
And I like that, Eileen. I like that, and that's very important as players and coaches to understand why we're doing something and what is it we look out. And we speak about in coach education about the head, hands, feet. What's my hands and feet doing? Okay, well, if I'm not executing the skill to where it should be, there's more than likely one of those areas or even the body positioning that could be out. So if we don't know what we're looking for, then we won't be able to rectify it. So as players and coaches, I suppose, Eileen, it's important to know what is the proper technique and what is it, if we want to improve it, that we know how to rectify it if we know what we're looking for. What's your thoughts on that, Eileen?
Yeah, you need to know the why. So whether you're doing it and you're using your own senses to see if it's going right, or you're looking back at a video, you have to know what it is you want to do. And for young players, if there's any young players on here, you have your people that you admire, your players that you admire, the players where you say they can jump up high, and you picture them as you're doing it, and that gives you an image in your head of what it should look like, and you're trying to replicate that in your back garden.
I really like that idea, Eileen. Love that idea of that vision, and I think with this, a lot of players you see in the centre, they probably start flat-footed, but they're on their toes. Let's go back to what we're learning through our colleagues in the sports science and the athletic development, and how we're supposed, how we encompass all this in. It all plays a key role in to be the optimal player. To be the optimal player, or to be the optimal performance. Niall, is there anything you'd like to add to what Eileen was saying there in terms of that clip?
I think Eileen covered it really well there, and I suppose just to reiterate, I think the beauty about an activity like this, it's much more applicable than a straight line drill, as it brings in some of the cognitive skills and the reaction skills, and really that's what the game is about. It's about testing our technical skills in games. And I think when you look at that clip, you can hear the coach reminding the player, well, actually, can you do this while soloing the ball? Because sometimes in activities like that, we're thinking about the call and we're forgetting about the skill execution. So I think more of this type of stuff, I think, is really applicable, because then you can really get a bigger picture of where the player's at in terms of their skill development.
And you're also working on physical aspects. You're turning, twisting, going 30 meters, 40 meters. You're doing a bit of whirling. You're doing a bit of tactics and running to space. So you're working on all the demands of our game in some simplistic activities that we can make more complex. Eileen, before I move it on, is there anything you want to say, or will I move it on?
No, just the last thing is it's kind of getting us back to used to the idea of being watched as well. So we've been doing a lot of skills on our own, and then suddenly the heart rate is up if somebody's watching you. That you're kind of getting back to that. Hopefully we'll have people watching us at games in the summertime and later on in the autumn. Something small like that just gets the heart rate up a little bit to try and get you ready to play again.
Great point, Eileen, and we'll leave it on that one. That's a great point. We'll move on to the next one, and we have a kicking challenge again. We're back to you, Fiona McHale, in terms of both sides, kicking accuracy, and also working a bit of fitness. So Fiona, looking forward to this one. Just while James is getting it up, in fairness, can you just kind of narrate away on it?
Yeah, no problem. So this is, I suppose you could say, it's a fun kicking challenge. So it's very much target practice. Now, when you are doing a challenge or a competition or like a skills challenge, you have to always ensure that the player is still, as you've been mentioning, executing the skill as best they can, as opposed to just trying to rush through, get a good time. So what we have here is we have six cones. You're working off your left foot and you're working off your right foot, but you're also carrying both balls as well at the same time, adding that complexity. So you can see here, the player is going to solo out around the cone, and it's really important that when they're turning the cone, they look up to survey their surroundings, but also then they put their head down and they put their foot through the ball, keep your head over the ball, and then follow through. And as you follow through, keep moving towards the target. But this is a challenge in that you have to try and hit all 6 balls as quickly as you can and get back to the start. But you can also add in to try and ensure that the technique is good, that every target you hit, you also get points. And maybe every time you drop a ball, you may lose a point or something like that. But you can see there as well that, you know, there's a partner there to kick the ball to. But if you don't have a partner, you can do this against a wall. You can see there that there's a large green space, which obviously you're lucky to have, but you can also use it against a wall. But if you are lucky enough to have a partner, that partner can also be moving in different directions. So that will ensure that when the person goes around the cone, they have to make sure they put their head up to see where their partner is moving to. So again, you're adding in that little bit of unpredictability to it. Now, you could make this harder in that when the person is going around the cone, instead of kicking at the target, they could actually just do a dummy solo, turn off onto the other foot and kick the other football, which would be a nice progression to this. But you can also make it easier, you know, if you've younger players here or coaches of younger players, you can obviously also reduce the distance of the cones from the target. And again, if you want to make it harder, bring cones out a little bit further as well. But there's a lot you can do in this, but it is a fun challenge. So, you know, it's good to add stuff like this in as well.
And also, Fiona, you know, I like that because that's fairly tough now. If you're doing that over 10, 15, 20 meters, you're changing direction, you're moving off the left, you're moving off the right, you have to find a target. And I suppose, you know, sometimes we feel that in order to find distance, we have to give it welly in order to give power. And sometimes when you give something more power, you could lose your technique. And I like the way you expressed, very important of the coaching the skills. Keep your head down, head over the ball, drop the ball with the hand you're kicking with. But for distance and accuracy, Fiona, it's more about technique and follow through, really, isn't it? Rather than belting the ball. So that I like the way you highlight that point. And I think that's an important point for people listening in tonight.
It's really important as well because, you know, a lot of the time you might, you know, younger players will be kicking the ball up against the wall, but you might be in a static position. So when you're kicking, but you're remaining standing because the ball is going to come back at you. So it's really important that when you are kicking, that you're moving towards the target or moving towards the wall, because that's what you're going to be doing in a game realistically.
Exactly.
But also very, very important as well in terms of soloing. And I think it's something that might be missed as well in terms of underage, is that especially if you're working off the weaker side, that you know, players tend to forget what the technique is when you're working off your other side. So to ensure that the planted foot or the foot that's on the ground is like you're putting weight on that foot as you're soloing, and it definitely helps if you use that as a cue with younger players.
And I think if you are giving ideas to younger players, don't assume. Let's go back to that. Let's not assume. Let's give them those teaching points. Head, hands, feet. Reinforce those teaching points. Because you see a lot of players, they might lean back while they're kicking. And therefore the ball will just go skew ways. So Johnny, I might bring you in. What's your thoughts on this activity? And what kind of advice you'd like to give the players and coaches listening tonight?
Yeah, so there's so much going on in this, Will. It's a great activity because, you know, especially when you're dealing with youth players, or probably if we're honest about it, when we're dealing with adult players as well, the one thing they love is competition. We love to be challenged and we love to be better than the player whether we're marking them or it's a buddy on your team. If we're doing that, you want to be better than them, and that's just maybe human nature. So we get that in this where, you know, you've got six balls, maybe. Okay, the receiver is timing you. How fast can you get back to the start? Okay, can you beat it? And all of a sudden, then you're putting pressure on yourself. And if you're performing the skill under pressure, you're getting close to match situations, and that's what really this whole thing is all about. Without obviously the contact, we can't at the moment have the contact, but we're trying to get as much in match situation. The other thing as well that I like about it is we can put the receiver under a bit of pressure. So can we put that ball, you know, up in the air that they're improving their high catch? And can we put it that little weighted pass that they're receiving it, you know, making one bounce, then attacking the ball. All those little things that, you know, are very important for us as, you know, as coaches. Back to game situation, you'll obviously attack the ball, don't let it bounce, get to it first, you know, win it as quick as you can, catch it at the highest position. So while our focus primarily is on the kicker here, there's a lot of work that can be done with the receiver as well. You know, albeit there's maybe not as much conditioning for the receiver, but you know, both players are really working on the technical skill, which I always like.
And as you say, the player who's receiving, that could be their rest period, that could be their rest time, while the other player goes and do it. You know, and even you know, the receiver, Johnny, when they get the ball, the receiver could hold two footballs, and as the player comes back, they could do a block pick up the ball and go again. So there's so many different things we could do with it. It's great to see. Now we're just ranking up the pressure now here with the drills and the activities, and we're going to move on. Thanks, Johnny, for that. We're going to move on to Niall, and Niall, the 10-ball challenge in terms of camogie and hurling. If you can just come on there and let me know. I suppose this is focusing on really the eye and the ball, and Eileen will come in as well in terms of her feedback on this one. So James is going to put it up there. This is number 6. And Niall, you can come in while James has put it up, and you can just probably start commenting on it while we get it up there for you.
No problem. I think I've a comment on it, but basic
match-based movement. This is the 10-ball challenge. The target here is to hit 10 balls in under 45 seconds. So the key to this challenge is unpredictability. You have to hit the ball as hard as you can off the wall, and it should go anywhere in the garden, with your job being to scan the garden, find your ball, take your 5 steps and hit it back against the wall.
So I suppose, again, just following on from that introduction, this is probably where I let myself down a bit in terms of I use strike all the balls off my right side. But the purpose here, the key message for this one is really we're asking the question: can the player select the right skill? And I suppose even though we're on a technical development webinar tonight, when I say skills, I mean technical, physical, and tactical skills. Can they select the right skill at the right time to appropriately respond to the challenges within the environment? So you'll see within the technical focus here is on striking on the run and on lifting, but really what the player does depends on the environment. So we'll see in the back garden there's for my as my excuse, there's a slight tilt. That's why the ball keeps going towards the left, and that's why I strike off my right. I use the 2 plants against the wall as my goals, and it's 10 balls in 45 seconds. And really the skills, as well as the hurling and camogie skills, you also have to, it's less instructive, which means the player has to scan the garden and see where's the ball. And I think something I'd like the coaches to think about is, how could we change the environment to force the player to strike off our left side? And I suppose an answer I'd have is that we might include 2 goals. You might have a goal on the right side and a goal on the left, and every second ball you're striking the right goal, then the left goal. And really goes back to our point, and goes back to maybe the point Johnny made in the football clip, was about testing these skills in the match day environment. Things to consider in terms of making it easier. You're looking at, maybe using 1 ball, letting the ball beat the player, and then reacting to that. Maybe instead of given 45 seconds, you might give 60 seconds, depending on the age of the ability. Looking at how we develop it, I've often used a slitter and a handball or reaction ball. So now you have different balls going different places in the garden. Maybe adding in a second goal, or maybe putting things, as we'll see in the last hurling camogie clip, maybe putting markers on the ball that correspond to the goal. So now you're bringing in this decision-making process, and really what you're looking for was, well, how effective are the players' technical skills, and how well can they execute them kind of in that environment.
Excellent, Niall. Joe, I like that, the reaction. Joe, you don't know the unpredictability of where the ball's going to go, but the way you have to react and turn, and you could do that in football as well. Just lash it off the wall and turn and just react, pick up the ball well and go again. And it's working on that physical act. That is tough because you're turning, changing direction again. You have to, I suppose, you're working the mind in terms of your reaction. Eileen, what's your thoughts on that activity, and what advice would you give to the players and coaches listening in?
Yeah, no, it's great because, again, you're bringing it that step up from the static to the movement and the reaction. And as Niall said, I think the external cues would be really useful. So you might run through it a couple of times, and you'll probably notice yourself, why is it going wrong? Okay, I need to maybe work on the opposite side, or I'm always on one side, so I'd add in an external cue. So something like this, you run through a few times. I would definitely need a higher wall than Niall there, so fair play to him, but I'd be losing league splitters, so you'd be setting it at a level for your players and then adding in, well, where's the challenge? how am I feeling after each one? Am I physically tired, or is my left leg tired, or my right hand tired? And I think for this one to really push on, it's the external cues and the cues for your opposite side that Fiona mentioned, even in the football, that you're setting up a target to come back onto your opposite side or that second goal. I think that's huge, that we don't repeat on the one side.
Very good. And what I'm taking up here is, and Eileen, you're very good in terms of highlighting keep asking yourself questions. What can I do different here? Geez, how can I make this more difficult for myself? Even if you're a player, just have that creativity. What can I do here now? Like I'd say, Niall there, that's a challenge to make sure it doesn't go over the wall and probably hit someone on the other side. But that's a challenge. But again, okay, you can challenge yourself by asking yourself continuous questions. What can I do better? What can I improve on? How can I make it more difficult? So thank you very much, Eileen and Niall, on that one. We're going to move on to our second last clip of the night, and I'm going to bring you back in, Johnny, regarding same, and it's around the wall. So this is around the square, working on kicking again off left and right. And I suppose this is kind of more on a bigger area with a partner, and probably just working on kicking the ball on the move, and also working on a bit of fitness as well. So Johnny, take it over from there.
Yeah, thanks, Will. I suppose not really unlike the last one Fiona introduced. We set up a square. We have the receiver in the middle, and we're probably introducing a little bit of running, kicking the ball, finding the man, running to the next corner of the square, taking the ball back off the player in the middle, and he hand pass it back. And we're looking for that accurate kick. So again, trying to win the ball on the full, so we have to be accurate kicking. But also, as we get around the block, we're maybe gasping for a bit of air. Can we perform the skill? Can we make sure that the quality doesn't go out of a kick? We're making sure we put the ball on the player's chest. And again, when we're under pressure for our conditioning, is the skill being performed? And that's what we're trying to do. So again, both sides of the body can be worked here. We can put the receiver under a little bit more pressure. We can put the ball in the air for him to catch. We can drop it in front of him for the player to attack the ball, and we can go in the opposite direction to use the other side of the body. So again, lots of things going on here. Can we make a competition out of it? Absolutely. How quick can we get around going clockwise? Then when we get back to start turning anti-clockwise. Yeah, and how fast can we get around, and can my opponent beat it when he does it? So loads of different skills, rather than just two players going kicking the ball at each other and getting a little bit browned off after a couple of minutes. Now we've introduced a bit of competition. You're also working on the condition, as we said, and there's loads of different skills we can introduce. That we can put the ball along the ground for the receiver to go down and pick the ball off the ground, left and right foot. So we're working to pick up. All the skills can be performed with different conditions in this, and that's why it's really beneficial.
And also the receiver, Johnny, I suppose the receiver playing the ball in front of the player, so they're coming onto the ball on the run, making sure their head, hands, feet again, not losing their technique while they're performing a skill on the run. You could also work a bit in your high-speed running here after a few weeks when you get back into training. So there's loads of things. Fiona, what's your thought on this activity, and any advice?
Yeah, it's a really nice one as well. You'd be obviously killed after it, but I think that's really important that you mentioned that, so the player on the ball is not breaking momentum, that when the person in the middle is giving it back, that they're giving the ball back to them ahead of them, so that they're continuing their run. If you want to make the person in the middle work a little bit harder, or get them doing something a little bit different, you could make sure that they're putting their hand up to go right or left, or making a run into space, so that when the person is going around the cone again, they have to keep their head up so they see where the player is moving, and they kick it into the space that the person's running to. Now, if you were lucky enough that you had a third person from your household that you could add into this, and again, they may not necessarily have to be a footballer. They could just literally, again, just be on the person's tail, going around that square, just putting a little bit of pressure on them as they're receiving the ball. It just puts that little bit of pressure. It might make them fumble or whatever. So you could do that where they're behind them, or if you wanted to make it a little bit more complex, every time the person goes around the cone, the person can just stand in front of them so that they have to do a little sidestep around them and then kick the ball. It's just to add a little bit more complexity to it.
Yeah, it goes back to keep it simple. Eye on the ball, head over the ball. Okay, drop the ball to hand you're kicking with, and follow through in your kick and keep a relaxed motion. So thank you, Johnny. And Johnny.
Sorry, Will, and that is, it can be like, obviously we use the football field to record that, but that can be done in the back garden. It can be done in the front green. It can be done in the farmer's field. And that's the real beauty of it.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Johnny. That you adapt to suit your environment, really, don't you, Johnny? Really, that's what you do. You just adapt. Where have you? What space have you got? Well, what can I achieve here, or what do I need to adapt these activities to suit? And I think it can be achievable, Johnny. It can be achievable.
Absolutely, and that's what we're looking for in our players, isn't it? Like, we're looking for them to be adaptable. We're looking for them to be able to deal with the situation, deal with the environment. We might decide that we've trained and it's beautiful training, and all of a sudden the day of the match and it's milling rain. We've got to adapt to those environments, and that's what we're looking to do. Yeah,
it's very similar to what I suppose we launched our player pathway recently. It's all about the player, the game and the environment. And it's vitally important that we have all those aspects applicable as well. We'll move on to our final clip. So thanks, Johnny and Fiona. We'll move on to the final clip, and it's a shapes. It's a reaction. So I like this one, Niall and Eileen, in terms of I like the thought process around it. I like the idea of it. So Niall, I'll let you take it on there. I know it's going to come up and it'll probably explain the skill for us. So Niall and Eileen, I'll leave you. Niall, I'll let you take a lead on this one, and Eileen, we'll ask you for your thoughts in a minute.
No problem. So it's based around, I suppose, the hurling camogie skills are looking at first touch, striking, and handling.
3x3 square. If you don't have cones, you can use a foam roller, a runner, a water bottle, and a cone. For this exercise, you need to associate a marker with each shape. For example, the X on the ball equals the blue cone.
So again, when you're, it's something very, very similar to Eileen's activity, and really for this activity, you just get your ball and you put shapes on the ball. So you might put a triangle, an X, a square, and a circle. And you associate a shape with a corner of the grid. So in this case, the X was the blue cone. And really, if you don't have somebody at home to call out a corner of the grid, well, this allows you to kind of react to it. But it also brings in some stuff around a kind of visual skills. And we've always told our players to keep your eye on the ball. But the question is, how do we know the players keeping their eye on the ball? And even with young novice players, you might put a mark on the ball and ask them when they're striking, what mark do they see on the ball, just to ensure that they are looking at the ball. And also, the better our visual skills, the quicker we are to react. And I think our game is always about buying ourselves more time to be able to get out in front of our opponent. And I think to follow on from Eileen's point regarding the last skill, if the wall was higher, you could implement catching skills and asking the player just before they catch the ball, what shape do they see on the ball before they catch the ball, and maybe associating that shape with a corner of the grid. You're adding in then some, again, match based movements, and I can guarantee you doing a few sets of that now is just as tough as doing maybe a 1K run in terms of the physical aspect.
Eileen, thanks, Niall. I love this one. I actually love that one. It's something I tried out myself, so it's excellent. Eileen, what's your thoughts on it, and what advice would you give?
Yeah, no, it seems ridiculous to say that people don't look at the ball. It's probably the first thing we ask them to do, but a lot of people don't. They're looking at the person they're going passing the ball to, when your brain does have time to look at the ball and then find out where they are. That, as Niall said, even your really junior players, you can be doing something like this, that you'd have something with animals on it or colours or whatever, and then your older player and get them to call it out, or have it match with something else. And then build, you can, all of these, the good thing about all of these, the football, camogie and hurling drills are, you can make a change and add it on. So that's what we're looking, how will this work for a beginner player, intermediate and adult player? So like your top level adult player there, looking at the shape, is getting to the shape and is then bursting out of a bit of power through a tackle. So you have another prop left 5 meters away where they can burst through a tackle or sidestep around them, you know, or go for a point, go for a score. And with your younger players, then you might tell them, you know, after you get the ball here, you paint the picture that you're driving up the middle of the field to score a point in Croke Park. Like it's as you said, the player, the game, the environment, their player pathway. Everyone wants to get to Croke Park, whether they're 12 or, you know, your senior intercounty player.
I think what I'm learning tonight, you know, the importance of being creative, being adaptable, really knowing what are the key teaching points in terms of each of the skills, what is it you should be looking out for, adapt all these activities to suit your own stage of development, and you want to make it easier or harder. So there's just so much learning going on here that simple works. You can make it as simple and as complex as you want. I don't know, Seamus, is there anything in the chat? If there's anything in the chat, you know, before I move it on to Des to wrap up the session, but if there's anything, so thanks to Niall and Eileen and Johnny and Fiona for that. But if there's anything coming in the chat, Seamus, you can let me know. If not, we can move it on to Des.
No, just one very good question there come in. At what age can you start using the two footballs to develop the skill? I think that relates back to one of the very early questions we had there, or one of the early clips, I should say. So
I suppose, yeah, Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'll jump in there, Will. I don't think there's a definitive answer for that. I think it's a case of knowing your players. Like, you know, if I'm working with an under 16 team, I know where they're at. I'd be always an advocate of trying it, see how it goes, failing in it, and learning. And you know, the players will know themselves. And I suppose the beauty maybe is when we're getting ready to play, to get back in, is that, you know, maybe a player that's not proficient in carrying both balls, he decides that, well, I'm going to chance this on my own with my sister in the back. If I look like a bit of a fool, that's okay. I don't want to look like a fool when I go down and have to do it in front of my mates down in the football field, but I'm doing it here on the green, or I'm doing it with one of my buddies here, and you know, he knows me well enough, so you get that little bit of confidence as well. So I wouldn't like to define it as an age. I would be, you know, saying to his coaches, try it. If it doesn't work, try again. If you fail, that's okay. I would make them comfortable to go out and try it. You know, you'll know yourself, you'll have a young lad at 12 or 13 and have no problem carrying both balls, and then you have another player that, you know, maybe hasn't developed as quickly as someone else and maybe struggles soloing the ball on his strong side, you know, with only one ball, and that's okay. But the thing is to take them out of their comfort zone, you know, challenge them. If they don't come back, you know, that's fine. If you put a condition on it, there's a chance they're going to add one or two if they're not really good anyway. You know, if you're saying how many you could get or how quick you did it, if one lad is, you know, gets around in 2 minutes and takes someone else 5 minutes, there's a chance he's going to tell you it was only 3.5 minutes anyway. So, you know, they're going to take a bit of confidence from that. So I wouldn't like to put an age. I think you know your players best. And
I think, John, before I go on to let Des wrap up the session, I think, guys, just have all the footballs out there, and if you're doing an activity and say we'll set up the activity, okay guys, if anybody here wants to use 2 footballs, off you go. If anybody here wants to use 1 football, off you go, and let them make their decision on what they want to do. And if they can throw to the left and they're right-legged, then maybe they can hit it with their knee. So I would actually say let the players make their own decisions. Let them off. You know, give them the loads of opportunities and let them select what's best for them. So we can be very, very, I suppose, just instead of being prescribed, sometimes we can just let it flow and just let the players make the decision. But look, on that note, on behalf of myself, I just want to say thank you very much to Fiona, Johnny, Niall, and Eileen. I really enjoyed tonight. I really learned an awful lot, and thank you very much for your preparation over the last number of weeks, and also to James Heffernan in the background there doing all the clips. Thank you very much, James. I'm going to pass you over to Des Ryan, the leader of the Be Ready to Play, the man who is leading the whole thing behind the scenes, and Des is going to let us know what's happening over the coming weeks. So Des, over to you.
Thank you, coaches. Fair play, great content and great conversation. Really enjoyed it. And of course, I'm a sports scientist by background, but I know my place, because this is the most important thing. Playing the game, mastering the skills. We're just here, sports science and medicine, to support and help the players stay involved and enjoy it and perform. So this is the most important content. And it's really appropriate to the stage we're in now. And I think it's called breaking news. So I was checking out the RTE website, and the government guidelines now seem to be children under 18 can get back playing in pods of 15, training in pods of 15 on the 26th of April. So we've something to aim for. Inter-county, this is more about club players, but for instance, inter-county are back on the 19th of April, training collectively. So good news, things to aim for, and I'm sure the adult club player will have some news pretty soon. So we got to be ready to play. So with that in mind, it's coming soon. So far, in the athletic development, we've done 2 blocks. So that's 4 weeks. It's 2 weeks for every block. Tomorrow is the new block, block 3. 2 weeks of appropriate content for where we are now, training at home, all the examples we saw there, and they can be supplemented with this athletic development. Coming after that will be block 4, and then at the end of that, back training. So we couldn't have timed it better for the 13 to 18-year-olds. That's 8 weeks getting ready for it. Now, if you haven't started, it's not too late. Get in, have a look at block 1, block 2, block 3, build up gradually. So we're always trying to improve. That's a good principle of continuous improvement. So tomorrow in block 3, there's PDFs of the programs. There's hyperlinks in the programs that bring you straight to the video of that specific exercise. So coaches, you could send those to the players on your groups, and they could do them by just looking at them on the phone, or you could use the website. It's multi-use, multi-purpose. So yeah, we've got the programs up and going tomorrow in block 3 for the youth, the adult, and the advanced adult. Also, it's not obligatory, but if you are on the website, could you fill out the evaluation? We're very interested in feedback. We always want to improve. We want to listen and see how we can make this user-friendly as possible. And what you want, we want to hear. I don't want to forget about the referees. If games are coming soon, they need to be trained too. And this is perfect for referees as well, the adult program. Get in, get active, build up gradually with the athletic development program, and listen to the advice in the sports science webinars. So I'm just thinking here, and hey, yeah, if you haven't played a Gaelic games for a long time, you're thinking of getting active again, the safest way is start at block 1, build up gradually. And even if you're just thinking about being active and healthy, there's content in there that suits. So something for everybody. So the next webinar is in 2 weeks' time, and it's with Laura Mahoney, and she's a performance nutritionist with the Sports Institute, so very well qualified, very informed, and the title is going to be How Nutrition is Key to Help You Be Ready. So we're building up to something now. We have something to aim for from a training perspective for the under 18s. I'm sure more news will come in the coming weeks. And it's so important to lay the foundations for the skills, to get ready to train, the physical, nutrition, psychology, etc. We'll have all the information here and on the website. So please build up gradually and get ready to enjoy the game that you love.
Thank you very much, Des, for that. I'm really looking forward to this exciting program. Be ready to play. It's available on the GAALearning, guys, and on the CAMOGIE website, and also the ladies football website. Get onto it, as you know, and keep learning and keep utilizing to develop you as a coach and players. So thank you, Des. It looks like a very exciting few weeks ahead. So we're all looking forward to it. And again, thanks to Johnny, thanks to Niall, thanks to Eileen and Fiona, and also in the background helping us out was James Heffernan from the CAMOGIE Association doing all our video work. And also we had Cathal Craig and Seamus Burns doing great work in supporting us with this webinar. So on that note, we hope you enjoyed the webinar, and thank you very much for your time. We look forward to your continued interaction. Thank you.